Say the Semantics, episode 275. It is October 2nd, 2024. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. It has been a rather extraordinarily hot week here in the first week of October. It's been awful. I hate it. I hate this heat. It was worse than I anticipated because, I mentioned how earlier that I thought that there was going to be kind of like maybe like a heat wave of sorts maybe in September, but no, it wasn't actually in October, which is this is like around the time that you would expect it to become cooler, and it did, and it was cooler, but it came back up, and it sucks, and I hate it, and I want it to be over. I want it to be fall, man. I don't want this like Indian summer shit. I don't want any of this. But we'll get through it. Apparently last year or the last few years, there was like a similar thing where it just suddenly got hot all of a sudden, like leading into October. So it is sort of consistent in that manner, but it still sucks and I hate it and I don't like it. So, I'm very much looking forward to, this thing that we're dealing with, just passing by. Like I'm under the shade right now. I'm recording this in shade and it's still hot. It still feels very just humid and it's gross, man. I don't need to be wearing just like a t-shirt and shorts, in October. But anyways, we'll get past that. It's been a nice little week. Nothing too crazy going on. Been sort of, keeping steady with just work and everything. I've been really kind of hyping myself up for the NBA regular season, which is, as I mentioned last week, really just coming up in a few weeks, and I'm very excited. I've been listening to a lot of basketball related podcasts, a lot of NBA, just general podcasts, team podcasts, that kind of thing, and just really getting the feel of, how other people are feeling, and just getting a sense of, just the excitement that some fans are feeling. Whether it's for like a contending team or if it's just for a rebuilding team, it doesn't really matter. I think there are still things that individual teams can be excited for. And so, yeah, that in turn gives me sort of, kind of that excitement through osmosis, if you want to call it that. And, there's a lot of things obviously to look forward to. Just the general beginning of the season, as I've said before, is really kind of one of my favorite times of the season, right? Outside of that, it's probably like the first week of the playoffs and that kind of thing, where there's just sort of like this, just like an insane amount of basketball just in general, right? Where you have almost all 30 teams playing at the same time. It's just good. It's just good. And, I'm really just looking forward to a lot of things, looking forward to some surprises, some surprising teams that do come out of the gate. Maybe some just some new player that I didn't really know anything about that just kind of pops up onto the scene. There's a lot of kind of narratives that you can really think about being drawn out from the beginning of the season. Some teams overachieve, right? and then they fall off, or the team decides to go into a rebuilding mode, similar to like what the Utah Jazz have done for the last couple of seasons. Like, so you have a lot of cases where it just like the direction of the season is sort of really until it starts is really unknown, right? I think for the teams that are sort of in development mode, you can you have an idea that they most likely won't be successful this year, but there are going to be some hints of some rookies or some of the younger players that do come out and surprise you, and you're like, okay, this might be a potential playoff team in the down the line in the future, right? You can look at some of the teams like the Pacers or like the Magic, that had sort of like this kind of, rise last year and made it to the playoffs. And I think there's a lot of there's going to be continued growth from those guys, but there might be some more with other teams as well. So there's a lot to look forward to. And I've just been very I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of getting back into the sport world. It's been a while since I've really engaged with it, anything outside of like the Olympics, and even then I wasn't like fully paying attention. But I really am kind of like back in the world of basketball, and yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. Media day for all of the teams, I think, have been held to this point, and now it's sort of like the training camp period. Preseason games are going to happen later this week, which I was kind of surprised about. I thought it was going to be, like a week or so. So we're getting basketball pretty soon. Not legitimate. The records aren't going to count or anything like that, but we are going to get. We are going to get some basketball, which is awesome. Like I'm taking anything. So it's going to be preseason is really a good chance for especially, the second or third string bench players to kind of showcase what they have, right? Just a game with like, really no stakes at all kind of provides them a chance to show off and, show that they could potentially be a part of the rotation. That's really kind of one of the main things that I've always really enjoyed about the preseason. Like it's not anything where there's like, this is going to be the, you get to see kind of the full scale of the teams or anything like that. That's not it at all. It's kind of it's an opportunity for those who generally don't get to show out to show out and showcase their talents, and I'm excited. I'm curious to see on the Warriors side of things who we might have. Could be one of our younger players, obviously outside of like Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis, Kuminga, right? Like outside of those guys, if there are any other rookies, because I really haven't paid too much attention. I kind of forgot who we even drafted. So I do want to kind of see if they could potentially be rotation players and can be somewhat productive in their role. I think that we saw success with Pajemski and Jackson Davis last year. So, hopefully that kind of translates to one more, another younger player to be, a contributor off the bench. I think that would be really awesome. Just, the more youth really kind of, the better in some cases, right? Just to have some security in that. And I do think that, we're going to get limited minutes from our new guys with Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson and who was the other guy? I always forget his name. It's so frustrating because it's like on the tip of my tongue. But there are three kind of main guys that we got in the off season, and seeing how they perform. Maybe obviously not to the full extent, but seeing how well they can mesh together with the longevity, the players of longevity like Draymond or Steph, right? It is going to be, it's seeing Clay in a Dallas Mavericks jersey feels very surreal. And I'm on it. Just the number 31 is just doesn't look right. It's kind of a stinker. I wish some level of success. Like, I'm like, I wish well for him. I don't really care how well the Mavericks do. I don't have any, stake at them whatsoever. I'm not really interested in that team. But I hope he's well. Whether he does well or not doesn't honestly really matter too much to me. There's like cases, and it's not like of me being like, sour on him leaving or being, whatever, brokenhearted. Like I've already sort of, in most instances, I think I've sort of made my amends with that. I've moved past that, but it just like I think that I just don't really like, he's not on the team anymore, and he's not on their team, so I don't really feel that I need to root for that team in particular. It also like I think it would be different if he went to like an Eastern Conference team than a Western Conference team who we are directly competing with. Because then it's like, I don't really feel like there's really too much in stakes to really cheer for him on that team. But because he is with the Mavericks and Western Conference and stuff like that, it just lessens my desire to want to root for him. But I do wish him the best, even though it's kind of a shitty looking number in jersey. And then it'll be very interesting to see what the reception's going to be like when we do play them for the first time. And obviously when he does play at Chase Center, the tribute video and everything like that is going to be something to look forward to. But yeah, we'll see how that goes when the time comes. It has been interesting kind of following along with the post cat trade and sort of the discussions that have kind of come out since since last week when it did happen. I think there's a lot of there's the initial reaction is definitely something where I looked at that trade. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, what are really the first thought that comes to mind are like, what are the Wolves doing, right? But I talked about it in the last episode, but I think I can see where Minnesota is coming from making that decision, and I can see where New York is coming from with making that trade. And it has been interesting to see kind of the different fan bases, the people that do cover the two teams, how they sort of view it in terms of the transaction, in terms of the value of the trade for both sides. It has been very interesting to kind of see it from their perspectives, people that are much more in tune with the Knicks or with the Timberwolves. So that's something that I've been kind of keeping up with. I think it is also going to be interesting to see kind of the effect that it has on the rest of the NBA landscape, whether there's going to be other teams in the East potentially that are going to make moves to kind of maybe counter what New York did. I think it's going to remain to be seen how well the fit is going to be for New York with Towns. I'm assuming he's going to play a center position at this point because Mitchell Robinson is currently out with an injury. He's going to be out for a while, I think it's been reported. So just how well that kind of starter group and how the main cast for the Knicks are going to perform. Like on paper, they look amazing, right? Like that's one of the best starting five in the league, but it'll come down to kind of execution and how well they mesh together. I do like that team. I do think they have like a really, I do like the players on that team. I think they have like a pretty likable roster overall. And I kind of go back and forth between whether I enjoy watching Cat play or not. Sometimes it is pretty frustrating, and I can definitely see it being very frustrating as a Minnesota fan over the past years, seeing, his kind of transgressions on the court, like his fouls, his maybe kind of some of his the temper he has with like the referees and that kind of thing. It did seem that he did get a little better last year, and I think part of that did contribute to their success in being able to get to the Western Conference Finals. And he also played he played amazing during like the Nuggets series. So I think that I think that sort of the opinion on Cat, just in terms of the way he presents himself, sometimes is a little bit skewed in a certain way because of just, the antics that he has had before, but I do think he has definitely gotten better, and he's sort of, I don't know, matured in a lot of ways. So I do think he will still be just like a really good player for New York. Again, we will see kind of the fit and the way in which they sort of execute their lineups and that kind of thing, assuming that he is going to be at the 5. But I am kind of I'm very keen on checking them out. I did watch a lot of Knicks games last year because they were kind of one of the more exciting teams that kind of rose up last year, and I think it'll be sort of the same. Although they won't have someone like DiVincenzo anymore, who was like a pretty big contributor last year. He had some of the more exciting moments during the playoffs for the Knicks, like whether it was like that one, the 3 to put them over the top, like the crazy comeback win in game 2. So it was really fun to watch him play last year, but I think he'll do kind of similar things with Minnesota this year as well. So I've always really liked DiVincenzo. I thought he was really great for the Warriors when he played for us. I would have loved to keep him, but obviously I totally understand him, going to, greener pastures and that kind of thing. But I've always liked him, his play. I think he's a really good player. So regardless if he's on, not on the Knicks, if he's on Minnesota, I'll be keeping my eye out on him. Some other things that kind of popped up to me in terms of just like, from just sort of like the first, media day is really just sort of a lot of players kind of putting quotes out there. And I think a lot of the time it is just, it's really to get, a lot of it is to get the fans really just excited and invested in their teams. And I totally get that. Like some players are going to say some things. There's like, it's just not going to come to fruition. Like you are just not like going to be on a good team, unfortunately, but it's cool to get your fans, hyped up and excited regardless. But it's sort of, it might fall flat if you kind of look back at it, in hindsight. But I think that one of the things that sort of popped up to me is the kind of the way in which like you have certain players that I think in the case of something like Chicago, I think Zach LaVine had sort of like a interesting way of handling, the direction of the team and whatnot, or just like trade rumors and that kind of thing. Cause like he's been a part of like trade rumors for like the past like 3 years or something like that. And it was definitely the highest it was last year. The rumors were, and eventually, he wasn't traded really, right? He's still on the team. And I think that there's, after they traded DeRozan to the Kings, I think the Bulls are looking to kind of go back into, sort of rebuild mode. But despite that, they still have LaVine and Vucevic, and it seems kind of likely that they're going to be, potential trade assets, going into this year. It just doesn't really make, I don't know. It makes sense in terms of like having vets to develop your younger players, but also you need to have, if for someone like, I don't know, the younger players on the team, like a Kobe White or whatever, like you need to have them be sort of the main factor, the main component of the rebuild process, and have, the ball in their hands and stuff. And I just don't know like how well that's going to go. They've been just like stuck in this like, they've been stuck like in the middle for a couple years now. And, I think with what like LaVine said in terms of just like not, telling reporters not to pay attention to like trade rumors and stuff like that, I think that there is some level of like truth there, or something that you can kind of take away from that, where it's like ultimately like a lot of these news, it's like if a trade happens, it happens. Like these rumors, like maybe some of them can be corroborated later on. Like in the instance of like the Cat trade, there have been rumors sort of in the past about Cat going to the Knicks and that kind of thing, but like that didn't detract from the fact that the Timberwolves still had like a successful season. You know what I mean? In the case of Chicago, it is very different because they are in a completely different stage than what the Timberwolves are, where they are vying for potential championship contention. But for the Bulls, it's just in a completely different direction. But I still think there is some validity in the fact that your main focus as like a player, as a part of an organization, is to do the best that you can, whether it is to contribute to winning or trying to develop the younger players. Like it just, like all of the other noise is just such like a non-factor, you know what I mean? And I do enjoy, I think, media day is, again, there for to kind of, develop hype and obviously kind of build up like the, get all of the shots and whatever. It's just sort of, it's there to sort of be a part of the final product of the game, like in-game product, right? But I do think that there are instances where there's some things that do come out of media days just sort of misconstrued or whatever, or just like taken to like even a further a context that doesn't even really exist, right? And I think that can be pretty frustrating. It's definitely frustrating, I'm sure, as a player to hear all of these things. It's just like, you know what, we're just trying to play the game, and we might not be good, but at least I'm trying, and there is like other motives for sure. Like you want to, if you are in a position like a Zach LaVine, who you are playing, but you're also trying to show that you are still valuable and you could be a part of like a contending team and whatnot. But like you still just got to play in general, and that's just kind of what it comes down to, is just sort of the on court of what you're able to show. So it just doesn't, like, I do think it is like kind of, it can be fun for sure to talk about, trade rumors and that kind of thing. I mean, I was caught up on Lauri Markkanen going to the Warriors for the longest time, and I was pretty mad that it didn't end up going. But again, it's like it's one of those things where it's like it's rumors. There are things that just happen. I mean, Giannis going to the Warriors, that was like an older rumor, and that just didn't come to fruition. So it's fun to talk about, but ultimately what happens, the result on the court will kind of speak for itself, right? It's sort of like kind of the takeaway that I'm having, that I kind of get. Like, I know it's like a weird thing to look at like the Chicago Bulls and think like this is sort of like the sort of like a reflection of pushing away rumors and that kind of thing, because they're not a particularly good team. But I do think there is something to be said about how it just really is going to come down to what the game shows. And I like just all the noise of media day and whatnot. It's just we're just kind of building up into the regular season. I mean, we just had a huge trade happen, so of course there's going to be kind of fervor going around, and that kind of just sort of like builds into everything else. And other, you take just comments and just quotes out of context and run with it. And if you're not a particularly good journalist, you're gonna turn that into some kind of clickbaity article and whatnot. That's just kind of part of the media, unfortunately. And I don't know, it's probably difficult to deal with that as a player, but also you get paid a fuck ton of money to deal with that also. So I think you do have to have some level of thick skin to be in that kind of position. Anyways, I will be looking forward to preseason games. I think they start on Friday, I believe, and it's just like it's not legitimate. It's just it's exhibition games, really. We'll see kind of who maybe some younger players are able to get into, be a rotation piece, whatever. There might be some surprises here and there. But it's just going to be nice to see some basketball again. I do think I am gonna miss some level of like the Olympic style of basketball, FIBA basketball. Just the way those were called, the length of the games. Um, I will try not to talk as much as I can and limit my conversation about gambling ads, but it's just unfortunately going to be a part of the discussion when it comes to sports and stuff, because it's so ingrained and everything. But I'm gonna miss not having to see gambling ads every freaking 2 minutes or whatever. So there's some instances where I am gonna I liked what the Olympics had in terms of their formatting, in terms of the length of the game and whatnot. But I mean, it's just nice to get back into the world of basketball in general. It's been a while since I've really talked about it, right? I was kind of checked out, honestly, like after like the postseason. Like I was just a little checked out on, just the timing of everything, of me kind of being busy with some other stuff, and everything sort of coincided with that. But I do want to kind of really get back into it, and I feel like I have, and it's been nice to hear other people talking about basketball as well. So that's that. This is going to turn back into the premier NBA podcast, so just be aware of that. Just be aware of that. I might kind of I might cut back a little bit on some of the other topics and focus on the real news. No. Anyways, yeah, we got that coming up. I did play some more of Echoes of Wisdom. I did play and make some progress in that. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I don't really think I have too many other notes to really add. I have really liked the dungeons so far. They aren't super long, but there are some challenges in them in terms of the kind of the puzzles and that kind of thing. There was this one puzzle that I was just like struggling with, and I had to like figure out that there's actually another mechanic that you can use to do something, and I'm glad. I'm sort of happy that I was like, okay, it wasn't actually as complicated as I thought it was going to be. It was more so that I didn't realize there was like a thing in there was a technique in the personnel that I could use. So that was kind of fun to figure out. And overall, I've just had a really good time with Zelda, and have just had a blast with it. It's been pretty quiet on the gaming front of things. There hasn't been a ton of news that's really popped up, right? Like I talked about the state of play last week, and obviously Zelda just came out. But it has been sort of, it's been pretty quiet. There hasn't really been any rumors or any leaks or anything crazy that's popped up, especially on the Nintendo side of things. It feels that this I mentioned that it's sort of the calm before the storm. I do think that we are sort of in that period now where they are sort of preparing for a potential announcement, release date announcement coming up. My expectations is that it's going to be in October. I still kind of hold that opinion. Just based on the timing of everything, and I think the timing of the original Switch release and everything, so it just sort of lines up to be in October. I think that I think that they've really started to maybe, shut down maybe potential leaks, additional potential leaks and that kind of thing. I mean, we really did kind of get the biggest one a couple of weeks ago regarding the specs and the 3D printed model and that kind of thing. That was probably the biggest thing that was going to come out, really. I mean, I don't know what else is really going to be, super substantial until the actual release itself. So I think we just have to kind of wait and see what happens on that side of kind of on that front. But yeah, it is kind of funny just sort of going through this sort of hype cycle of where there were people with just such like a strong conviction that there was going to be an announcement made in September, only to be pretty disappointed that there was anything, right? And then now we're sort of like in a period where it's just like this like pretty significant lull of us just sort of waiting around and just checking our watches and that kind of thing. But I think it's sort of it's a good time to maybe just step away from it and just be like, okay, we didn't get the news. We just kind of have to just wait a little bit longer and just sort of hold on to it. I think getting swept up into that whole into that whole hype, I think it is fun in some instances, but also like you just cannot set yourself up for failure in such a way that it's like if like all in all it's like it really won't matter until we see the game get released. Really, that's just kind of going to be like what the kind of the final nail in the coffin, right? That's just the ultimate thing. Like nothing else matters up until there is an official announcement. So it's just like, no, you just don't have to. You just don't have to put yourself into these kinds of things, right? It's not really worth it. But it's fun. But it's just don't do it to yourself if you're just like you're actually feeling devastated and sad that a product isn't coming out on time. I get it. I totally understand that. In the case of something, like game delays and whatnot, but let's just hold on. We know that there is going to be, for sure, a new system coming out. It's just whether we're going to get actual confirmation of the date, of what it looks like, and all of these things. So it's just going to be coming down to just playing the waiting game. That's really what it is. But yeah, I really wanted to kind of, I think that's probably going to do it for now. I really just wanted to kind of catch up on some minor, NBA headlines, some NBA things that I'm interested in. I think that I want to talk about, if there is anything that pops up with like Warrior preseason games, I do want to talk about that. I do want to talk about what the fit looks like for those other players that have come in. So I had to look it up. D'Anthony Melton. I don't know why. I was just kind of getting mad. I was like, dude, I feel like I should remember the names of the players we got. D'Anthony Melton, which is good, which is cool. So we basically got two shooters. We got sort of like a with Kyle Anderson, we got a pretty versatile sort of wing player, a good defender for sure. So I'm very excited to see how they all kind of fit in. I'm still a little peeved about it's just like we gotta. I heard that Trace Jackson Davis apparently got taller. That's good. Maybe he can be almost 6'10", 6'11", maybe. Can we just have a center like of some sorts? It's been Looney. I love Looney. He's gonna do the best he can, but I just. We had a really good run. 2022 we made it work. The last couple of years just has not been the same. We just I think it's time to bring in a larger body, and we'll see though. We'll see. Maybe we can cook up something. I really have my expectations. I'll just end it off on this note because I just got back into Warriors talk, but my kind of expectations for the season, pretty low, similar to last year, honestly. I think maybe a little better than last year. Last year, I mentioned that, I think I said that I wasn't really expecting them to do anything in the playoffs. They didn't even make the playoffs. I think this year they have the ability to potentially contend for playoff positioning, with maybe a bit more security. Not security, I don't know if that's the right word. Maybe there's a bit more of a chance that we could secure like a lower seed. Do we have to go through the play-in? I really hope not. There's just a lot of good teams in the West, and I think it's going to be pretty hard. But again, we will see how that goes. But I am a little bit more hopeful. Again, I'm not anticipating championship contention. We're just not that team anymore. But maybe we could be, still be exciting. Steph's still playing. It's going to be, he's going to be 36th going into 37. Like he's getting there, but he can still play. He showed what he did during the Olympics. Maybe some of that carries over into the season. Give us some of that excitement. And yeah, it's just gonna be it's gonna be Warriors basketball. Whether we're gonna be great or decent or good or even bad, I'll still be watching. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it off at that. Once we get into the kind of the weekend, I'll see, I'll catch up on some preseason action, let you know what I'm feeling, let you know what teams, I'm paying attention to, what teams what other teams outside of the Warriors I may be interested in paying attention to. Talk more Zelda if I have anything else to add on that front. But yeah, that's all I got for now. So I will catch up later this weekend. All right, recording this on Monday, October 7th. It's gonna be a bit of a staggered release for this. Since I did record last week technically, but I wasn't able to record anything this weekend, so it's gonna be a little weird, but it's fine. I'm probably gonna start like this next week's episode recording on Wednesday or something, or maybe even tomorrow if something crazy happens. Switch 2 release details tomorrow. No, probably nothing like that. But yeah, I've had had some things this weekend, so I wasn't able to catch up on anything. But like there is like a good amount of stuff to kind of talk about. The NBA preseason has started, and there are some games that are happening and starting up right now, which I'll probably check out later tonight. So a lot of good stuff there. But yeah, so this weekend the preseason, the first preseason games started on Friday. Like I am so it's really funny. It's like at this point in the year, I am so starved for just basketball, like despite there being, technically summer basketball with the Olympics, and there has been, WNBA playoffs as well, but that's kind of sporadic. Like it's not really, there's not a lot of teams, and with the playoffs and how the scheduling kind of works, there's only like a game, there's like a game day maybe like once a week, so it's not like a ton to really satiate my basketball consumption, right? So like to get like just like a little inkling, a little droplet of NBA action, even if it is preseason, even if the result doesn't matter, it gets me excited. I like seeing what other teams are doing in terms of, who they've acquired, who they've drafted, that kind of thing, seeing who's on their like third string, knowing that most of them will never see, any actual NBA playtime unless it's like garbage time. But yeah, it's just fun to kind of, see what kind of the developments are, and what sort of direction certain teams are heading towards, right? This sort of in a continuation of the prior week kind of media day coverage of the teams, the various teams and their rosters, and kind of the direction that they want to be heading in, and just kind of this feeling of excitement and that kind of thing, and that sort of carries forward into preseason action a little bit. Despite not really it being, potentially most of the results from these games will really not really translate to much else leading into the regular NBA season, right? Because you only see the players play like at least like the starters and the main rotation play. I don't know, maybe like barely even like half the game, 20 minutes, maybe less than 20 minutes of the game. And then the rest are sort of left off for the reserves, the second and third string players. So it's really, you don't really get to see like what the actual NBA team is going to function like, but you can get a sense of like what it may look like, what potential, what some of the younger players could provide potentially for the teams. It's exciting. It's exciting to kind of keep up with that, and I've caught some, a good amount of the preseason games. There was one today at 10:30, like p.m. It was the Magic and the Pelicans, which was just kind of the wildest time in like New Orleans. So I think it was probably like maybe like 1:30 for them, which is like crazy, just like on a Monday too. So I don't know who I don't know who is gonna be off at that time. Is it just like a school trip or something that could be or some people just taking off a Monday so they can go watch go watch a preseason game with the Magic and the I don't know. It's kind of a funny it's really funny timing, but whatever. It's just it doesn't really matter too much. It's just like, we just need to kind of get this scheduled. I mean, I think it is entirely possible with all of the hurricane, the crazy shit that's happening like in sort of the southeast of the states, with just multiple hurricanes in that area right now is pretty crazy. So it might be a case of like scheduling the game earlier so it provides time for teams and just everyone in general to plan out just, I don't know, safety precautions and that. I don't know exactly. That's just sort of my assumption. I know that Florida is going to be hit, kind of heavily with this new Hurricane Milton. So hopefully, everybody is staying safe. Like, whatever, sports is just kind of a secondary thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, hopefully everyone is able to kind of be safe from that. Because I know that other parts of, like, I think North Carolina was hit pretty heavily by Hurricane Helene. So it's just tough, man. That's just like, it's tough to get hit by like two pretty significant storms in less than what it feels like a week. So I don't know. I hope that everybody is doing okay over there. But the timing of the game is still kind of is still pretty funny to see that. But yeah, so the Warriors played the Clippers on Saturday for their first preseason game. They were out in Hawaii. And I was able to catch the first half before I had something to go to. But I liked what I saw. I know there was sort of, there was some mixed, not mixed, like, there were some maybe questions and concerns regarding our current rotation. The starting lineup for the preseason game was, it was Steph, DeAnthony Melton, Draymond, Kuminga, and then who was the fifth player? Did I get everybody? 1, 2, I know Draymond plays, 4, but and then Trace Jackson Davis. I thought I liked that lineup. I know there is some issues about spacing and whatnot, but I just like, I thought Melton came out. He showed that he could really fit into that lineup. I do think he'll be a really good player for us, and I think it would make sense to have him as the starter alongside Steph. He has, he's a good defender. He can, obviously shoot the three. Like there's a lot of good things that come with him being in the starting lineup. And I think that I really like especially having Trace Jackson at the 5. He had some really great standout moments last year. I think about the block he had I think he had like multiple blocks on Giannis last year when they played against the Bucks, and he was really impressive in that. That kind of sticks out to me. Like that was like one of the highlights for me last year. Despite kind of how tumultuous it was. And I really like him being a part of that starting rotation. I think he can really kind of play, in a similar role to what Draymond has over the years, and being, a facilitator at the top, and being kind of like a dynamic big. I don't know how well like his shooting has really improved from last year. If he's able to somewhat, I don't think he's ever gonna. I don't know if he's gonna become a 3-point shooter. I don't think there's really been any indication of that. But if he can at least be in a position to be kind of like a floor spacer in some sort of way, and being kind of in the mid-range position, that would be really good. But I just think that there's a lot of upside with him, and I think that he fits in really well with kind of the Warriors and Steve Kerr's system. So, and I liked how he played. He didn't have the best game necessarily, but I think there were some moments he had that kind of stood out. Like him and Kuminga had some nice connections here and there. Kuminga didn't play the best, but I'm not really super concerned with him necessarily. I do think that there will come a point for him where if he is not contributing in any way, shape, or I think he's a solid defender. I think that his attack to the rim can be a threat for the opposing defense. He can draw fouls and get into the paint and all those sort of things. Really the big issue with him is his spacing and his ability to shoot from the outside. So I think that if that is going to be continued to kind of be like this looming issue with him and being able to play him consistently, Greg, because they're really just going to leave him off, whether it's in, just wherever he is out on the arc, the defenses are gonna leave him. But if he's able to utilize that and continue to try to attack the basket, and maybe develop a shot of sorts, there could be some nice upside there. But we'll see how that goes. I do like Kuminga. He's sort of like out of all of our sort of draft actually, I'll take it back. We've had some decent drafts. Last year we picked up Pajemski and Trace Jackson Davis, which I thought were some really good pickups. And then also, I think Kuminga has been with us for a while now. Moses Moody, like they're all decent players. They're all really decent players. But unfortunately, I don't think we should keep all of them. It's just not gonna work for what we're kind of aiming for in terms of the right now, which is really the next. Honestly, it's gonna be the next 2 years. Really, is kind of the window for a final push. Again, I've already kind of expressed this. I don't really have too high of expectations for this season. It just seems like we already are kind of going in this kind of direction where we have this mashup of vets and young players. And while I do like who we got in the offseason with Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, all of them are really solid role players, but that's just not going to be enough to elevate this team to contention. You know what I mean? And it's like I do like our young players, and I have liked them for a little while, but it's going to be, I think it's just going to be time at a certain point to move off of them so that we can kind of maximize the final years of Curry, right? I like, it's going to be, I don't know what, this is thinking, a few years down the line. I don't know what the rebuilding process for this is going to look like, right? If Curry, if Steph is going to end up retiring with the Warriors, which I think is more or less expected with the team, like I really don't see, unless, like, I don't know, the front office goes like, you know what, we're gonna trade Steph and we're gonna go in full rebuild mode. But I just don't see that happening. You know what I mean? I don't think most fans are gonna want to see that. Like, that's just it just feels kind of out of question for that to happen. But because, like, and it also, it's just not gonna fall. It's going to completely fall out of, fans' favors. Like if you just, like, if the team is like mediocre, as it kind of is, right? They're going to make more money that way than if they were bad. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the case, right? Like, even if that could give us the potential to be a great team again later down the line, I just don't it's just I just don't see it in the future. I think we are kind of we're gonna be decent to like good. We might be sort of like bottom tier playoff team, as we sort of have been for the last couple. I mean, last year we didn't even make the playoffs, but in the last couple of years we'll probably be in that kind of 7, 8 seed at the very least. But I just kind of have a difficult time sort of projecting them to make a decision where it will benefit the team and the franchise later down the line, unless like Curry, I don't know, takes a pay cut. I don't know exactly. I'm really bad about like, salary cap stuff and contracts and all that kind of. I have no semblance of an idea of how that would work in reality. I just know that right now this is kind of what we're sticking with. We're sticking with the future of. I mean, we're sticking with the present now, with Steph, and having him just kind of continue to be the face of the franchise while he does. While he still is able to play at an exceptionally high level, which I think he will, at least for the next couple of years until he reaches like his late 30s. But I think that it just feels that there isn't really going to be, it's like it's going to be kind of like an unknown with, going into the rest of kind of the post Steph era. I just don't really know what to expect from that. It really is kind of just sort of an unknown in that regard. So I am I don't know. I'm not like apprehensive or whatever, but I am curious to see like what the future of that is gonna look like. Anyways, I haven't. I'm just kind of rambling on about. I'm thinking like 5 years into the future. Let's talk the now. So I think so based on the preseason, which from what I was able to watch, I liked again like what Melton was able to bring. I did like how Moody played as well. He's another kind of question mark in terms of where he fits into the rotation, or of whether Steve Kerr is going to play him or not. I feel that unfortunately that's just going to be part of the conversation now that we do have like multiple kind of wing players with Hield, with Melton, with I think Pajemski, you can kind of argue, sort of fits into that picture as well. We have sort of like 4 guards, right? And then, he can kind of be sort of like the switch between, 3 and a 2. But it just is like, I don't know, man, is Steve even going to play him? I have no idea. He just kind of has this, I don't know. He has this like weird, he has such like an interesting fixation on like certain role players, like really just sticking with them for far longer than he should, right? I think like Anthony Lamb comes to mind from someone like a couple of years ago. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know if he's going to adjust and try to, because really it's like if we don't play him, he's not going to, we're going to have to trade him. I mean, which is fine if he's able to bring back some value, like some package with some of the younger players to bring back another vet, like another significant star player would be the best, right? We missed out on that with Laurie. I don't know if there's anybody else out there that could really fit into that mold, but I don't know. For Moody, like he just has to kind of do his best to like stick around and I don't know, do the best he can. Like really, like everything he does is like really good. Like in the short amount of time he does play, he always provides some level of like, I don't know, some level of production, whether it's hitting a 3 or deflections or steals and whatnot. Like it's always like there. It's just like a matter of like whether Kerr wants to play him longer or not, right? That's just kind of what I've gotten a sense. But I think that seeing his play and the fact that he isn't getting like significant minutes, despite him being, like he's been with the team for like almost 4 years now, right? So he is like a pretty like obviously outside of Steph, Draymond, and Kevon Looney, like he is like one of the more tenured players on the team. So it's like I feel like we got to stop. Like it just feels like we're playing Moody as if he's like still like a rookie, and like he's not. It's like, oh, he has to like prove himself. It's like he has in these like short moments, like as a role player. So I don't know. I think if it's going to be an instance of this thing where we're still having this conversation, because we had this talk last year. There was like there's one game in particular. I forgot who it was against, but it was one of the games where we lost like a 20-point lead. There's like an instance where like Moody was playing really well, like he didn't miss a shot, and then Kerr takes him out. And then the momentum kind of swings in the other team's direction, and it's just like, you know what, if this is the case, like, we just trade him, like send him somewhere he can actually play and get his minutes, because it just doesn't feel like it's like we can find someone else, find an older player that can play that role, and then just work with that. I don't know. It's just a little, it's just frustrating, you know what I mean? And I think, unfortunately, and I generally try not to be super pessimistic, but again, I don't have high expectations for this season, so I think I'm fair to be a little, I'm fair to be critical. I think the same issue is just going to kind of continue to exist, because of sort of maybe what we have a bit of a logjam at sort of that guard position in the rotation. Okay, so the game was like, I didn't know this because I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like the highlights after I got back home, and apparently it was like a buzzer beating game. One of the kind of the third string players, I don't know if he's like a two-way or if he's just kind of a like Exhibit 10. I don't know exactly what. Lindy Waters, he hit like a game-winning 3 at the buzzer, which was fun to watch. That was like exciting, and I like seeing the bench reaction. You know what I mean? That might be one of the more exciting moments in the season. I don't want to be. I don't want to be too like down on things, but you know what? Enjoyed that moment. Like it's fun to see that. It's cool that that a player kind of gets that little moment like that. That'll be something that I don't know if Lindy Waters is ever going to be like a significant player in the NBA or anything like that. You never know, but that could be something that he can kind of add as a part of his highlight. It's fun. It was fun to see that. But yeah, I think there's going to be another preseason game this week, but it's going to be later in the week. They're kind of like they're doing kind of very long breaks in between, because I think the time in between is going to be reserved for just training camps and practice and all that. But yeah, so sometime this week is going to be the next preseason game. I think it's against the Kings, so we'll see what that kind of looks like. The Kings are interesting. I don't know how much more they progress by getting DeRozan, but I think he should help in some regards in terms of their fourth quarter production, whatever you want to call it, that their offense, obviously. So I mean, I also really like DeRozan. I've always liked him since his Toronto days. So I mean, it's cool. It's cool that they got him, but I don't know how well. I mean, they'll be better than us. They'll be better than the Warriors. But I don't know how much that's going to translate into either playoff contention or postseason success. We'll see. But yeah, good for them for picking him up. But yeah, there were some other games that happened over the weekend. Really, nothing too crazy to note of. Like it's really hard to, get anything super significant from preseason results. Like it just doesn't, because most, again, like I said, like the majority of the players that do play during this time are not going to see the regular season court. So it's just like, how much can you really take away from it? It's more so maybe a chance for a potential surprise to get into the rotation, right? But for the very, the best teams in each of the respective conferences, like they already know who's going to be a part of that rotation, right? They more or less have that solidified. It's like, oh, maybe, if someone gets injured, maybe this player can kind of step in and fill that role. But other than that, it just doesn't feel like, it's more kind of like a way to potentially showcase, these players' talents that usually aren't able to. And maybe this will be a chance for them to get into a better, just like I don't know, if they are if teams are going into like rebuild mode or whatever. Maybe they could be a part of a future in that rebuild as being a part of the kind of like a young core or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, there's like a few more games tonight, I think, for preseason stuff. I don't really know if there's really anything to note there, but I'll definitely be checking out. I'm just happy that there's any semblance of basketball going on, whether it's it's meaningful or not. I just think it's fun to watch some basketball, and it's cool again to see players that you don't really know, and it's like, oh, maybe they could be, kind of a nice surprise if they do end up being a part of the rotation. So that kind of is like, okay, maybe this player could be something, right? Like this, this player from the G League or this like second round pick. It just, you never know. It's always sometimes, sometimes there are surprises that can be, potential contributors to good teams. So that's something to maybe kind of look out for. And it's also just like, if you do watch like the first half, if you do watch the first halves of these games, you do get to see kind of like what the actual rotation is going to be like, and if the players do look good or whatnot. But yeah, it's nice to see. It's nice to see some more basketball, and I'm excited to catch up more of that during the rest of this week, which I'll cover it in technically next week's podcast episode. Not much else kind of on the basketball front, but there's a lot to get into. But as we kind of get near the regular season, I think there will definitely be more things that I do want to kind of get into. I'm sure there's going to be kind of more excitement as it kind of draws near. So, I do kind of want to do maybe sort of like not a final, but just do like a little preview of what the Warriors season is going to look like. I've already sort of implied what my expectations are, but maybe I can get into a little bit more detail in terms of, what I think they could, really actually do with kind of the roster they do have. There was something that I missed last week that I actually wanted to talk about. I noted it down, but I just completely forgot about it because I got swept up in NBA preseason stuff and media day. Like who cares about media day? But anyways, last week, Monolith Soft had their 25th anniversary since the company's inception. And they put out like a nice 3-minute video, just showcasing kind of the games that were created under the Monolith company title, and it was really nice, and it also it was a celebration of all the things that they have put out over the course of a quarter of a decade. And it also sort of like, it gives us, I don't know, maybe it's reading too much into it. Really, it's kind of just like a celebration of everything they've done, whether it's, from Xenosaga, obviously, to Xenoblade, some of their maybe smaller titles that they put out like on the DS and on the Wii and that kind of thing. But it really is like, okay, acknowledging the things from their past, which they did with Future Redeemed, and on top of that, they did use the ending song from Future Redeemed in this little in this little celebration video, which I thought was really nice, I thought really kind of tied things together and kind of gives me a sense of what they're kind of looking into the future for. It really, obviously the obvious connection is just kind of the use of the Future Redeemed ending song. And the feeling I got from watching this video is really kind of the same that I got when I did beat Future Redeemed last year. Is just really just kind of like I'm very excited for what the future holds for Monolith Soft, and what their upcoming project is going to look like. Most likely a new Xenoblade title, but I just it feels like them acknowledging their past, acknowledging things like Saga, I think is really good. One, because, and I think this might be a bit of, maybe this is like, a bit too much speculation, but there is kind of like a hope of like an inkling of hope that maybe Saga will be available and remastered or whatever, and provided for newer systems, whether it's like a Switch 2 or something like that, right? I think having like a remaster would be awesome. And also acknowledging those older titles is something they can kind of, look at and, kind of present to, newer fans of theirs, say that, look at this kind of like catalog of games that we have in the past and where it sort of led up to. And on top of that, it's like we have, we're kind of showing the building blocks of where we were in the past, and we're just going to continue to build upon that so that we can, continue to kind of progress and grow and create even more just like great, games and experiences and whatnot. And I think that's that was like the actual messaging that was like provided alongside this announcement. I think the CEO, I forgot his name. It's not Takahashi. Takahashi is the COO. So the chief operating officer. So it's still a little different, but, the CEO said something along the lines of wanting this to continue just as long as it can, which is sort of like, okay, that might be, that's kind of like the vision every company has, right? But I feel that it really goes along in line with the work they have created, the actual art they have created. That sort of really ties in to kind of what the ending of Future Redeemed sort of implied, where it's like you look into the past so that you can move on to the future endeavors, like whatever that might hold. It's like you take a step back, revisit history like you did in kind of the celebration video, look back at what what past creations were done, and then from that build upon it and continue to build upon it so that you can create something great once again, or even greater. And I think that's a really just, I don't know, it's just like a really strong message. And that just makes me even more excited for what they have next. I really have, I'm really, I'm very happy with the conclusion of this Xenoblade, the current Xenoblade saga. No pun intended. But I'm very excited to see kind of, what it's going to look like next. I think it is going to be pretty different. There's definitely, I'm sure there's going to be things and references and whatnot that will get, brought into the next iteration of Xenoblade. But I just am, I'm just very much looking forward to it. There's just kind of, we've gotten little news here and there about, development, of what the next game is going to be with kind of announcements of trying to build up hiring and that kind of thing, and that also is getting me excited. So a lot to really kind of a lot to look forward to on their end, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see what their next game is going to look like, especially for first the Switch 2, whenever that's going to get announced, whether it's this month or next year. But there's a lot to really kind of just it was really nice to see that kind of that video pop up, and just sort of that little announcement pop up. One, I didn't even realize that it has been 25 years, which is awesome to hear. And it was just like a nice little reminder that obviously I knew that there have been continued developments, but it's like a nice little reminder that, hey, listen, we know what we have. We know that there are things that you as fans most likely want, and just stay tuned. So that was some nice little news there. Other than that, it's just in terms of just kind of gaming related stuff, it has been pretty quiet. It really does. I've said this last week, but it really does feel kind of like the calm before the storm. I really do think that the release is going to be made this month. It just makes sense. It lines up with what was done last year, or excuse me, for the original Switch release. And so I think that it just makes sense. It just sort of makes sense. And kind of continuing that, and trying to sort of keep in line with what was done before, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So just sort of do kind of the similar thing, but just better is kind of what I think is going to happen with the successor. And I don't know. If I am a betting man, I'm not. Again, I've complained a lot about gambling recently, but if I am a betting man, I will say that the release will be done this month. Anytime soon, I don't know. Is it going to be tomorrow? Probably not. If it is, I'll obviously talk about it pretty quickly after. But I don't think it's going to be tomorrow. Although today is just sort of something a little different. So Atlas put out a new game made by the creators of the kind of the recent Persona games, Metaphor ReFantasio, and the reviews came out today. There was like a demo that was released I think last week, but reviews were kind of the embargo was lifted today, and it appears to be incredibly well done. Just some really high scores across the board, and that has me intrigued. That's something that I would be interested in picking up in the future. Again, it's not on Switch. It's available for Xbox and PlayStation. But in the future, that might be something on my list that I would like to get into. I really enjoyed Persona 5 Royal, and I think that I really liked some of the aspects of like the gameplay and just the style and all of it. It was kind of was a real highlight for me, and it looks like they brought some of that over to Metaphor, and in a very different setting, kind of a medieval sort of fantasy. I don't know. Just like a very interesting setting, very different from kind of the typical high school setting of the Persona games, and I'm very intrigued. I think that one of the maybe drawbacks that I do, or one of maybe the reservations that I do have about the game, is sort of the schedule thing where you have to do certain things at certain times and that kind of thing. At a certain point with Persona 5, I did feel a little burnt out. I talked about this last year when I played it. Again, overall, just like an incredible experience. Overall, just a really great game. But I did feel a little worn out by the end of it. So I do wonder if the pacing is going to be a little bit better for this game, as well as sort of the, the day by day mechanic, if there even exists one. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really looked into it a ton. But I've heard the music. The music sounds excellent. The music sounds awesome. Like the kind of the main battle track is so so hype. It sounds like almost like a boss battle theme. It's really just super bombastic. You have this like choir like singing monk, and it's like you don't really know what he's singing. He's like speaking in tongues? I'm not really sure. But just a really, it sounds like a kick-ass soundtrack, and that's a big draw for me, for a lot of games. So if I do pick it up, that, the music will be a big reason for it. And that sounds kind of like a future game that I would like to get into, if it does, if I do pick up like a PlayStation, or fingers crossed down the line, maybe it comes out for, one of the Switch, one of the Switch consoles, whatever that might be. If it doesn't, then oh well. But yeah, it's just a really great critical reception. It seems like it has like the highest out of really any game this year, which is kind of crazy. Maybe some other reviews come out later and bring it down a bit, but for now it seems to be just almost like universally well received. So that's pretty exciting. It's cool to see. It's cool to see like a turn-based combat game get this kind of level of success, right? I think that just like the Persona team, they're just doing something really. They found like a formula that kind of works, and it seems that there's like a pretty big appeal with what they've got going. So it's just like, might as well just run with what we have and just sort of continue to build on it with metaphor. So that's really cool, and I'll definitely play it for sure. Sometime later down the line. I don't know when that's going to be, if it's next year, or a few years down the line, when if I do cave in and get a PlayStation 5 or something, but yeah, it's on my list of a future purchase. But yeah, outside of kind of these things, there hasn't really been anything that's really piqued my interest in kind of the gaming world. I have played, continue to play a little bit more Zelda. I've really been just like relishing and just kind of like soaking in my experience playing with it. I actually don't play for like super long necessarily. The way I'm kind of going about it is, I'm really just kind of trying to savor the experience like a good meal. You don't want to just wolf down like a like a fancy five-star meal. Like you want to just kind of enjoy it. Plus, it's a bit of a shorter game as well, so I do want to just like enjoy every kind of moment with this game, and so far it's been excellent. I've just had such a good time with it. There's been some really nice surprises here, some like little dungeons that you get to complete, which is awesome. It's almost like there's like a I have no idea if how much the development team took into account the criticisms with the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom games, but it just is like this game feels there's like this kind of almost flush with like these like dungeons and these areas where there are like little puzzles that you have to solve, outside of the main dungeons itself. And so I think it's really cool, and I really, it's so charming. I know I've said that word before, but it's just such like a good, it gives me a good feeling when I do play it, and I think I will be playing it later tonight and doing a little bit more. But just a wonderful little piece of little game, and yeah, I'm excited to play more of it. But yeah, that's gonna do for this this sort of weird combination of weeks episode. I'll be recording again pretty soon, I think, if anything does pop up, which it might, and I would like to talk about. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.